The subconscious mind is powerful, but it's also gullible. So it believes whatever you tell it. I always say sometimes it's powerful. It's almost like it has power, but hey, it's color. We need to make sure you give it what you need for it to manifest. So whatever you're internalizing, meaning whatever you tell yourself, if you, for example, internalizing what this person is saying, I am useless, and you believe you are useless, you live out and manifest a life of you functioning from a place of being useless.
Live Unfiltered with Pindile Yende.
Published author and speaker Pindile Yende.
Businesswoman Pindile Yende.
Pindile Yende, mother, entrepreneurs.
Hello everyone, welcome to Life Unfiltered with Pindile Yende. Finally, this podcast is happening and we are here to discuss life. We are here to unpack this thing called life. As human beings, we go through so much and we just don't talk. And here is a platform for us to sit and chat, have a conversation, and hopefully also give you the tools on how to go about this whole life thing. And on our show today, we've got the amazing Dr. Tumi Mashego, who has graced us with her wonderful presence and here to help us unpack a lot of the things, whereas we'll be speaking about a topic that's very dear to my heart. We will be talking about childhood traumas and how they actually impact our lives on a day-to-day basis. We often go into relationships whereas we don't really know the person that we're with in that relationship. And when a person changes all of a sudden, we don't know where that came from. So today we are here specifically to speak about the traumas that we go through that we never speak about and how they affect us in the long run. Dr. Dumi, welcome yet again.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want you to tell the viewers out there, who is Dr. Dumi? What does Dr. Dumi do? I know that Dr. Dumi is a clinical psychologist and a sports psychologist, but I actually want you to expand it and explain to our viewers out there what that really entails.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Dr. Tumi Mashego. I'm a clinical and sports psychologist, a performance and mindset life coach. I help athletes, adolescents, couples, families, organizations to help them thrive, to become the best versions of themselves and to, improve productivity where needed in organizations. And I've been doing this for over 18 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
You wouldn't say, look how fabulous you look.
Thank you so
I was surprised
much.
the other day when you're like,
Thank
no,
you
I'm
so
dropping my
much.
boys off at school. I was like, Dr. Dumi's got boys? Oh, wow, that's
Yes,
amazing. That's
yes,
amazing.
yes.
So, Dr. Dumi, getting into it, right? The reason why this conversation is so important to me, I've written 2 books, Yet You Married Him and A Marriage Built on Lies. You've also written a book,
Yes.
Trapped in Love.
Yes.
And you know what I loved about it was that, sure, when I read the book, I was like, so a psychologist can go through such an experience? What about me, Pindi? You know?
I know.
And I was actually blown away. And I was like, this is actually a person that one is able to relate to when it comes to relationships and the things that we actually go through. Because, sometimes we choose psychologists and we just, here's a psychologist, I'm seeing the psychologist online, and then you go there and then you're not happy with the consultation that you've had with that psychologist. And for you, it was refreshing because it's like, when I tell this woman my problems, she will know exactly what it is that I'm going through because, wow, she's also gone through the most. So can you tell us about Trapped in Love?
Trapped in Love is a story about a memoir about my life where a 12-month relationship led to, me really suffering for 12 months. I was 22 years old at that time, so I was quite young. So unfortunately, I was exposed to psychological abuse, psychological, emotional abuse for 12 months. And when I left the relationship after 12 months, I was traumatized, for 8 years. And I think the story I tell is not to ridicule this person, but to actually emphasize what emotional abuse is because it's not understood, the impact of it, that it goes to the core of your being, but also how to overcome it. So I was on autopilot for 8 years.
Sure.
Until I decided, you know what, Dumi, you're not okay. I have to sit with myself because I had internalized such a negative view of myself because of the 12-month exposure to what this guy was saying to me on a daily basis. And with emotional abuse, it's like a subtle onset, and then it almost, takes a life of its own. And I don't think he changed. I think he became himself, or this monster that was within him. And going back to what we are talking about, is probably because of where he was coming from. So he was projecting a lot of anger onto me, and I did nothing to him. And the double bound messages he gave are always what makes people feel like they're going crazy. So I was confused for 12 months because I love you, and the next minute I don't. I think you're the worst person that ever happened to human beings, and...
No, that's quite interesting. And this person was a psychiatrist.
He was a psychiatrist in training.
And
the thing he attacked the most was my purpose as a clinical psychologist. Daily, I was told I will amount to nothing. Clinical psychology means nothing. And by the way, at that time, I was 22, but I had a master's in clinical psychology, meaning I was already practicing. So cognitively, the things he said, I knew I didn't struggle with, because he was diagnosing me with things. And also, it's why you making me feel bad if I am, struggling with these diagnoses. So he would diagnose me with mental health disorders. Cognitively, I knew I didn't have them, but I internalized such a deep self-hatred for myself because of his words. I actually believed him. And when I left, his words echoed in my head, even though I did not want to be in the relationship with him. His words echoed in my head for nearly a decade, for 8 years, until I decided, you know what, I'm not okay. And that's the message I put in the book, that healing doesn't just fall on your lap.
Yes.
Healing doesn't happen when you leave.
Yes.
It actually happens the minute you do the work. You have to sit with that pain. And even me as a psychologist, I had to really sit with that pain and admit I'm not okay. And it took 8 years for me to come to that decision and to be okay.
So I want to understand this, right? It took you 8 years to realize that you were not okay. So it didn't take you 8 years to heal. So only after 8 years, your journey to heal started.
And I always say to people that sometimes we hold on to this pain, not going to that place to heal. And actually, when I started the journey, it was shorter than, the 8 years.
Yes,
it didn't take me 8 years to heal. It didn't take me 8 years. It took me 2 sessions to come to the realization. I mean, I already knew that there was something wrong with this guy, that he was not for me, that I didn't want to be married to him, but the problem or the issue I struggled with was the self-hatred.
Sure.
But the minute I sat with it, the 360 was quicker than holding on to the pain.
Now, what I want to understand, Dr. Dumi, and I'd like to also make reference to my own experience with my marriage, right? You're a psychologist. You had to endure this trauma in your relationship. Yeah. I endured my own trauma in my marriage as well. How is it that a woman like yourself, a woman like me, and I also want you to say men, all these conversations, I want us to include men as well, because they go through the same challenges that we also go through. How is it that we struggle with realizing that there is something wrong with us? How do we get to that point of saying there's something wrong with me? Or there is, before we even say that there's something wrong with this person, because for you to have gone through that, there must have something must have happened in your past to have allowed yourself to endure such trauma. Definitely. Even for me to have ended up in a marriage of 6 years filled with lies and deceit, there must have been something wrong that happened in my past. And I also had to go through a journey, because I grew up with a mother and a father, a sister and a brother, perfect picture in the outside world. And I truly believe that my parents raised me well. But I found myself in that situation. So there's constant questions that what gaps were there that were not filled to have allowed me to get in that situation? With you as well, for you to actually fall in love with such a person and even had the knowledge and went to school to study psychology, but you still find yourself in such a situation. What causes that?
Human beings, we don't want to go there. We're very defensive. We don't want to sit with the hard stuff. But also we need to, life is about lessons. So there's no perfect human beings, right? So we are going to go through things. So in my case, for example, he found me questioning the journey of clinical psychology. Remember, I was very young when I qualified.
Yes.
All the institutions in South Africa did not want to take me as a master's student for various reasons, because of my age, because they felt I was young. And my story, I mean, you can imagine you apply when you're in your honors year. In my honors year, I was only 20.
Sure.
Right?
Wow.
And when I was doing my honors, I actually had not received my undergrad degree yet.
Oh.
Right? So I went there to apply for a master's degree with the highest level of education was my grade 12.
Wow.
So you can imagine now. So I
Yes.
already had that self-doubt because each and every interview I went, I remember the one vividly, the interviewer said, "Are you here accompanying your mom?" And I'm there to interview for, the masters myself, right?
Yes.
My marks were great.
Yes.
And now, but also had a motivation from the university to explain why my degree is not conferred yet, but they have trust that I will pass. So it was just one of those things. But when I eventually got into the program, again, I was the youngest, right?
Sure.
In spite of that, I was first to actually qualify and graduate with that. But in spite of that, when I met this guy, he then pushed on the thing I was already struggling with, which is what abusers do, right? And not to excuse their behavior, but abusers actually target the one thing you're struggling with. They study their victim. They study who, their target,
And I can
basically.
believe you when you say
Yes.
that, because I think with my ex-husband, he knew how much I wanted marriage and how I wanted this life that looked perfect in the outside world. So every time he would play on that, I can give you that.
Yes.
And then he could do anything to me, cheat on me,
Exactly.
lie to me,
Exactly.
do all these things. And then he would come back and say, "But baby, I'm going to marry you," because he knew how much I actually wanted that.
100%, 100%. So they take that and they poke at it and push boundaries around that so that you feel like you are trapped, so that you're confused, so that you doubt yourself. So the goal is actually to create a place where you are so, heartbroken, that you are so torn, that you don't understand who you are. And they capitalize on that. And then on top of it, they carry on. Remember, they thrive on misery. They thrive on the fact that you're miserable, and yet, they want to marry you. So it's always that double bound message. Half the time, the person in an abusive relationship, the victim is confused because this person says they love me, and immediately they tell me I'm the worst thing that happened to human beings. And
So when they thrive on misery, are you saying that they are happy that you are miserable?
So remember, they're coming from a place of misery. So if you
Okay.
sit with abusers most of the time, you find all the time actually that they're projecting their own misery. But instead of saying, "Help me, I'm not okay," you come there with your peace. They thrive on making you miserable. Their target is to destroy you so that they're miserable, so that you're miserable just like them. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I
and this is
understand.
at a subconscious level
Yes.
sometimes.
So abusers would also fall under. A narcissist would also fall under an abuser. Am I correct? Because I know that narcissists also thrive on you being miserable. It gives them a kick the moment that when they get to you. For them, they actually become happy that I still get to you.
Definitely.
The same thing.
Definitely. And it's always about what's happening in the subconscious mind. And we're not always aware. All of us have the mind, but I think we talk about the power of the mind, take charge of the mind, tap into the mind. But I always say to people, we don't actually quite explain what the mind is. The mind is 10% the conscious, meaning that's what we see, 10%. The reactions, the actions, the behaviors of people, the words they use. 90% is the subconscious. What goes into the subconscious is our memories, our experiences, our childhood traumas, our past relationships, our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts. 90% of that is a mess, but we're not aware.
And then when it's a mess, it comes out.
Yes, it doesn't have manners. I always say to people, subconscious things don't have manners, they don't have timing. But when you don't deal with them, you deny them, you deprive them of, you don't process them, they are raw. It's almost like a river, and then they become an ocean that's just going crazy in the subconscious. I always draw an iceberg. 90% below the surface is chaos. And if you don't process that, it's going to pop up in your 10%, the actions, reactions, your behaviors, your words that you say. And then sometimes even people project on us, but we also project on them as well. So just because we've got people who are mean people projecting on us, we also project on them. So our needs that are not healed from our childhood, I'm projecting on Pindile.
So are you saying that this thing of us telling ourselves that, no, I'm going to block that?
No, it
It
sits
does-
there. And there's no miracle. It doesn't go away. Just sits there, literally, until you come see someone like me.
And but then I'm going to keep acting it out without
Awareness
without
sometimes.
aware,
Yes.
without being aware.
Yes. That's why sometimes you're anxious about something.
Yes.
But when you sit with someone like me, who's able to take you back to say, you can't just wake up anxious. It's no, you are the chosen one to be anxious. No, let's sit. Where does it come from? And I've sat with prisoners, for example. When you ask them, for example, why do you kill? I'm talking adults, males or females. Why did you kill? Or why are you killing? Why is it a thing? What do you derive from this? They will say, when I was 3, Doc,
Oh my gosh.
my mom was killed or raped. So I'm angry. So my meaning, in the subconscious, there was that anger. And sometimes it stacks up. So maybe it was not just the mother. Maybe this person was also raped.
Sure.
Maybe then there was poverty. Then this anger builds up. It almost consumes this person and it becomes their personality,
Personality.
their character. And then we say, no, they're like that, unjalo. But it's because of what's happening in the subconscious. And sometimes, and now what we're seeing is this killing or this anger towards random strangers sometimes. Yes, sometimes it's towards people they know. But when we sit with them, it goes back to what's happening in the subconscious.
Imagine at 3, somebody who would have experienced something at 3.
And this is
Yes.
an adult. We're talking someone who's 40. And also the danger in that is that sometimes we dissociate so far from our pain and our traumas that this person is almost like they don't have a conscience.
Wow.
And I, the clinical psychologist, can say, poor prognosis, I cannot help this person.
So as a psychologist, you can
Yes.
come to that point where you say you can't help that person. Now imagine I'm in a relationship with that person. What about if you can't help that person? But then what happens in that case if you can't help that person? That's just how it
It
is.
is how it is.
And that
poor
person's going to live their lives
prognosis.
like that.
Unfortunately, yes, we can try and manage and, but there is a point where a clinical psychologist, trained as I am, with all the accolades
Yes.
they might have, to say, poor prognosis, this person is not going to benefit from coming into my office for psychotherapy.
Wow.
Because of, how they're presenting.
But now let's go back to this whole childhood trauma thing, right? You meet a man, you met your husband, I met my husband. They probably had their own traumas. We've also spoken about our own childhood traumas. At what point now in the relationship are you able to tell that this is a childhood trauma? Because now we are dealing with this person. You would know. You've gone to school, you've studied it. But now how do I know that I'm dealing with a childhood trauma now? And how do you now assist that person to also make them realize that this is a childhood trauma I'm dealing with? If you're dealing with a narcissist, if you're dealing with somebody who physically abuses you, if you are dealing with somebody who doesn't love themselves and they're projecting that on you as well, how does one deal with that? Because, I worry sometimes that I'm raising 2 boys, raised by a single mom. My children look very happy, very, very happy. But it's sometimes I think about it, that them growing up with a mother, how will that affect their relationship with the woman that they will be, And then sometimes you get friends who will say that, no, you must be careful how you treat your boys. Next thing they're going to think that, no, a woman is supposed to provide and do everything because they watch a woman doing all of that. But at how far does childhood trauma really affect us?
Oh, no, it affects us for life because it sits there and waits for you to address it. It's almost like I always give a metaphor that there's boxes that we put in the subconscious, and they sit there and they wait for you. Sometimes the box just swells up and consumes us, but sometimes it just sits there and it literally just waits for you to go sit with it. And when you open that box, that trauma from when you were 3, it honestly feels like the 3-year-old is reliving that. So the emotions are so intense because the adult you is opening a 3-year-old pain that has been sitting there, and the emotions are so raw. It feels like it's happening at that moment. And that's why therapy is so important. But also we need someone trained to do that.
Yes.
And also somewhat the timing of it, right? We cannot be opening that box if you're not ready to go there. I think that's also the tricky part with psychology things, or psychiatric, or the subconscious, the mind. We need to be ready to go there. There's nothing you can do to make somebody seek help if they don't see the need for that help. There won't be benefit. So you cannot force someone to seek help. And that's the part where we need to be aware that the only thing I'm born to control is me.
Sure.
Only thing we're born to control, even as a mother,
Oh,
is you.
it's
You-
me,
You
yeah.
can do what you can, put in place, get them professional help to
Yes.
see, because sometimes children don't tell their, parents everything. Get them that sounding board. Get them that someone they can call when they're not okay, if it's not you. But they need to know that they have your unconditional love, which is what parenting is about. But each and every person on this earth has their journey to travel, a purpose to live.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not what we think that the child should live out.
But now in my situation, does a child growing up happy? Because I believe I grew up happy. Yes, I had my challenges. I remember in my teen years where I was suicidal and all of that. But at what extent does it really affect a child? And I want to be specific. A child who grew up without a father,
Okay.
and men more especially, men and women who maybe were raised by step parents, merged families.
Yeah.
I want us to touch on those topics. Children who were raised by grandparents, right? Because I somehow feel that the lack of love that we somehow miss out on in growing up affects us a lot.
Definitely.
In our relationships, in our marriages, and just in life as a whole, in how you relate to people. Now, psychologically, how does it affect a person? And when a person experiences those kinds of behaviors that you may touch on, what is the way forward for that person?
For anyone functioning from a place of pain, right? What that means is something happened to you. You were not assisted professionally to process that pain. So meaning the pain is just there. As I said, it just sits and it waits for you. So anyone functioning from a place of pain, a place of hurt, a place of intense, raw, unprocessed emotion, they will not make sense. Meaning their actions, their behaviors, they're going to be sometimes weird. They're going to seem a bit illogical. They're going to seem a bit extreme. Right. So people are different. Yes, people could be raised in the same circumstances and not turn out the same, or not have the same type of emotions develop because of the circumstances. So what needs to happen is that each and every person of you needs to go to that journey for themselves, so that they can process that pain in whatever shape and form it comes, because unprocessed, it's going to manifest. I don't know if that makes sense. It's going to manifest. So that person who grew up without a father, if it was not processed, right, they are likely to be impacted in their adult relationships because of that absent father, if it's coming from a place of pain. But if the child is helped to process that, right, to understand it and to, be supported in it, they might turn out differently.
Okay.
This is not to say that, though, that maybe it wasn't a problem before, that it might not become a problem later.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So with human beings, with emotions, with psychological stuff, it's context dependent.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Anything can trigger how people become in that moment. But when we sit with them, you might link it to the absent father. You might also link it to the mother who never protected the child, or the child felt their mother never protected them from the abusive father in the house.
Yes.
So there's many ways it can play out, and it's context dependent for each child. And obviously there's also different things that play a role, like the support, because children need unconditional support. And that's what makes them thrive. We give them the material things. We give them things. We give them proper schools. There's nothing wrong with that. But what makes for good parenting and what children need is unconditional love and support against all odds.
So I understand that, but now, and I'm going to refer to more to our Black culture.
Yeah.
Our Black culture, we're not socialized to go and seek therapy,
Definitely.
right? I remember I started seeing a psychologist at the age of 16, and I started seeing a psychologist purely because I was suicidal, right? But I don't think that had I not gone through that phase, I would have been accustomed to knowing that, Pindi, you're not okay, go and seek help. Because I do my best at least once every 2 years, I check in.
Yes.
Not necessarily because maybe I'm not okay,
yeah.
but just to go check in because I don't want to get to that point whereas I'm now feeling overwhelmed with life. Now, you've spoken about a child. Now, that child does not have support. The parents don't know that this is the kind of support I need to give my child. They are now adults. They're projecting that behavior now onto their partners. As an adult, it would be difficult for me to tell you that, no, baby, as my partner, I think you need to see a therapist. So now when you say to me that sometimes you can't help that prisoner, and I'm in this relationship with this person, I'm in this marriage with this person.
Yeah.
What do you do, Dr. Tumi?
It is hard. What I always say to people is bring it back to self, right? If you're aware that the person you're in a relationship with is hurting you in some way, or they're hurting themselves in some way, then verbalize it, but try keeping away from using you. So instead of saying, you, Pindi, are always doing this, the person is going to be defensive.
Okay.
But if I come from a place of, I'm concerned about you, Pindi. I'm concerned that you're not seeming like you're okay. Are you okay? Coming from an I, using I a lot.
Okay.
So it's setting boundaries around, I don't quite like your behavior, but I'm also being vulnerable
Yes.
in how I'm addressing it, to say, I'm concerned you're sleeping more than often. Are you okay? Instead of saying, hey, but now you're just lazy, you're sleeping, it hits differently. So it's also in the way you put it forward to say, I'm really concerned. Are you okay? Are you sure you're okay?
But you've beaten me up at that time. How
So-
do I say that
And
to
then
you?
now when it comes to the place where someone is actually infringing on your rights,
Yes.
that is where then you need the professional help. Because the question is not necessarily to that person why they're doing what they're doing. It's more, why is Pindi staying?
Why am I allowing it?
No, why are you staying in the relationship? This person has been beating you for
Yes,
6 years.
yes.
The question is, Pindi, what's happening? Why are you staying?
He's been cheating on me over and over again.
Why are you staying? Let's have a look at Pindi. Let's sit with Pindi. Let's now process what's going on in Pindi.
Yes.
Yes, we see what he's doing. We know. That's why therapy is not about me telling you what to do. It's more about, okay, I see this person. Yes, we might label him narcissistic, abusive, and you can see it. Pindi's high functioning. She can see this person is treating her unwell. The question now comes back to Pindi. Pindi, what's happening with you?
And does that take me back to my past as well?
It could be. It could be. Maybe your past experiences or his words. This person's words. They triggered something that maybe when you were growing up, someone told you you're not good enough. Now here you are married to someone who's telling you every day that you're not good enough.
Oh, sure.
So sometimes it goes back to there, but sometimes it's just internalizing.
Dr. Dumi, explain internalizing. Explain internalizing to me. Like, I
When
want to
someone
understand.
says to you, you
Yes.
are useless, right? If you're in a space where you're vulnerable, you're not okay, you start internalizing it, meaning you believe it, right? You actually believe that I'm useless. So this person comes and he says to you, you're useless. If you're in a space where you're not okay, you're going to end up internalizing it to say, I'm useless, and starting to believe it. The subconscious mind is powerful, but it's also gullible. So it believes whatever you tell it. I always say sometimes it's powerful. It's almost like it has power, but hey, it's color. We need to make sure you give it what you need for it to manifest. So whatever you're internalizing, meaning whatever you tell yourself, If you, for example, internalizing what this person is saying, I am useless, and you believe you are useless, you live out and manifest a life of you functioning from a place of being useless. But the powerful thing about the subconscious is that the minute you do a 360 and you say to yourself, there's no evidence for me being useless, I'm actually a great person, it also believes you. So it's almost like a sponge. You give it vinegar, it takes it, it doesn't question. It takes it, and then the life that manifests is a place of, someone who's drinking vinegar. But when you change and you give it water, something healthy, it also believes you. But also your life manifests. And that's why the 360 can be so quick. Because for 8 years, I was taking in all this negativity and internalizing it and believing it and living from a place of lack, believing I'm useless, believing psychology is a waste of time, believing I'll amount to nothing. But the minute I did a 360, I was untouchable.
I think it also makes sense because the other day I actually posted on TikTok that, I actually did an interview at Radio Metro, and then I posted on TikTok, whereas I was saying to women that my ex-husband, he was so shocked that he had done so many things to me in like 6 years.
Yeah.
And then one day I just I've had enough.
Yes.
And it shocked him that I've done so much to you. How can
How do
something
you-
so small
Exactly.
make you upset and finally make you decide to leave?
yes.
So that's the 360 that you're speaking about.
Because you've told yourself, but I don't deserve this.
This,
Doesn't make sense.
yes.
Of course, the healing must still happen. But just that's what I was saying to you. It's so powerful because whatever you tell it, it believes you. And that's why if you're pessimistic or you're negative about you, you're telling yourself you're useless. Yes, people can say whatever, but the minute you take in what they're saying and you believe it, and it becomes part of you, your mind is powerful enough to create a reality where you manifest that life of being useless. But the minute you tell
Believing
yourself,
that when he tells-
and living it,
Yes.
yes. And remember, abusers also will tell you every day now. If they get a reaction from you and they see, oh, she's miserable, every day I'm going to tell her she's useless.
And abusers can be anybody. An abuser can even be your own mother, whereas you grow up believing that I'm not going to amount to anything, or
100%.
your father telling you you're not going to amount to
100%.
anything.
100%. And people will always speak, right?
Yes.
And of course, family we don't expect, but people will always speak. But the minute we take it in and own it, what they're saying, and it's also, and that happens because sometimes we don't know ourselves. We're still young, we're still developing, we're still gullible, we're still, we're human also. We don't expect a partner to destroy you and call you useless. It shocks the system sometimes, like, why is he saying I'm useless? Maybe I am. You start questioning it. But the minute you do a 360 and you start introspecting and you come to the conclusion, but there's no evidence of me being useless. I'm actually...
How do you get to that 360? Dr. Tumi?
You come see me. You call me because we can't be our own mirrors. I'm a great psychologist.
I know
would
that.
believe, right?
Yes.
I was doing great things in the 8 years. But I couldn't also help myself. I needed someone to be a mirror. But I had needed to come to that point of saying, you know what, Dumi? You're not okay. You are hating. Remember, for that 8 years, I hated my skin. I hated. And remember, I was wired like a perfectionist. So it didn't make sense that I even blamed myself.
That's what I actually wanted to point out, to say. You will see a woman who's very progressive in her career, confident woman when she walks down the corridors of big buildings and all of that. But then you hear that this person is being abused at home.
Yes.
So that's you, the psychologist,
It was like that.
who is advising people on a day-to-day basis, but still you're feeling that way about yourself.
100%. I hated my skin. I despised waking up in the morning. I meditated on my demise because I had internalized. And, I always say to people that abusers find something that's already you're struggling with sometimes. So remember, I was already struggling with my identity as a clinical, and I was young, as a clinical psychologist. So I honestly believed I didn't have a purpose because I've been working to be a clinical psychologist. I mean, it takes long. It's 8 years I've been doing this. I qualified. And I remember actually phoning around for a learnership for matriculants with my master's.
No.
That's the space I was in. That's the darkness I was in that 8 years. And
Because
the
you
guy-
didn't feel worthy that I
did
don't
not.
fit in here.
It
Yes.
didn't make sense to me. I was in that dark place. And the learnership column agent was asking, but you have a master's? Like, they were so confused. And I couldn't also articulate that, girl,
So
I
you
don't-
downgraded you downgraded
I
yourself to that
wanted
point.
to,
Yes.
And that's just before I decided, you know what, Dumi, you're not okay. You've been asking to leave this earth because you feel you don't have a purpose. Let's ask for the purpose. Because I've been dwelling on this thing that I don't have a purpose. So then I did my 360. At that moment, I started and I said, you know what? Lead me to my purpose. Because I can see for 8 years, I've been believing that really I'm going to vanish in my sleep because I don't have a purpose.
And reaching that 360, Dr. Dumi, would you say that a person has to get to that point themselves?
Unfortunately, unfortunately with psychological stuff, you can take people. That's why with alcoholism, we say someone must admit they have a problem. Otherwise, we can't help them.
Others, you can't help them and until they get to that point.
Yes, and it's like I don't even think just with alcoholism, with everything. You can drag your partner to therapy. If they don't see anything wrong, it's
It's pointless.
100%. So I had to get to that point. And after 8 years, I finally admitted that I'm not okay.
Okay.
Right? And I didn't want him back, by the way. He was still stalking me. I didn't want him back. But I got to that point. I realized I've lost myself here. And clearly I have a purpose. I'm still around. So let me find my purpose. And things just started to then unfold.
So a woman who has been cheated on, and it happens over and over and over again, you can't help them until they realize that I am worthy. I need to get out of this. The same as we mentioned, a woman who's been beaten up, they have to now say that there's something wrong with me. I need help in order for them to reach that 360. A man who is in an abusive relationship, because men also go through abusive
100%,
relationship, they also have to reach that 360. So it all, at the end of the day, comes down to being patient with that person, because a lot of the times we also judge each other, where we say that how is it that you are finding yourself in this situation? You need to stop this recurring thing that keeps happening in your life, and that's just how life is.
It really is that hard. And the book also shows that even after I left, I was still trapped by that man's voice. For 8 years, it still haunted me, right? So and remember in the 12 months, I could have left. I was independent already. I was working. I didn't need him for anything. I grew up with a loving family like yourself. I could have, I didn't have to be with him for that 12 months. And look at the trauma. 12 months, but for 8 years, I was traumatized, right? Wow. Even after I left. Imagine someone who's been married for 30 years.
Sure.
So the time frame doesn't matter.
Yes.
The time frame does not matter. But what is needed is that there's no miracle. I just woke up, no, I was healed. That's
And what is the healing? What is the healing process? What does it entail? Because you say for you, it took you 2 sessions. I think after my divorce, I think I'm still healing.
It's a journey. It's a journey.
Because I get triggered. I still get triggered to this day, where I'm like, how did I find myself in this situation, and all of that, And people don't understand, unfortunately, that sure, Pindi, you've been divorced for what now? 4 or 5 years, and people don't understand. It is a journey, and and it's okay. It's okay, right?
Okay.
Yes.
It's okay. And the trauma is not always your fault, but the onus is on you to heal, survive, and hopefully thrive. That's what I always say. It's sad that the trauma is not your fault, but the responsibility to heal is always on you, the victim. And leaving is just the first step. You need to intentionally, daily, survive and heal so that you can thrive. And the danger with not doing that sometimes is that hurt people often hurt other people. Even if they were unfairly hurt. I always add that, because sometimes we're unfairly hurt and you think, no, it doesn't talk about me, it talks about people who,
Let's touch on being unfairly hurt.
When you were unfairly hurt, you were in a marriage,
You loved.
You went in there full blown, and this person really was there to teach you some very big lesson, right? It is unfair. And once you get out of it, there's maybe children, and unaware you could really be hard on the children. Unintentionally sometimes. People who actually want to love you, who see you for who you are, who hear you, you don't give them a chance because you're still hurting. Or you give them a chance and then you're just horrible towards them. Family could want to love you, right? But because you're not in a space where you're healed, it's difficult. And you know, I always say to people that when you get out of the traumatic relationship, know that a new relationship, no one can love you out of the hurt. The hurt, I felt then trapped in love. No relationship was going to, no, baby, you are beautiful, you are good, you are,
It wasn't going to help you.
I needed to sit with me, and I needed to then do the work in my subconscious.
By yourself.
And sometimes people, need a mirror, you know,
Yes.
a professional to help, which I also tapped into that. But I needed to choose my healing, to say, I need to heal and be intentional about it. And I did it. And even with the book, I wrote down the experience. It happened in 2005 when I left. But I didn't publish it for years. I only published in 2019.
Sure.
And when I reflect, it's because it didn't have an ending. And I didn't want people to just hear my story, because I was saying, you know, in therapy, I realized emotional abuse is misunderstood. So I didn't want to just tell my story about emotional abuse. I wanted people to have tools on how to cope and to also understand what emotional abuse can do, that anyone can be a victim, but also how to thrive, heal, survive, but also for the people watching the victim to understand that it's not easy, this thing. It destroys you at the core sometimes.
It does.
And the abuser to also show that they're also projecting their own misery onto the person, and it has nothing
to do with you.
And you can't save them. You're not a savior.
And women, we love saving.
Yeah, you're not saviors.
We love saving. We always think that I can help this person.
The only person you can save is yourself. And it's not selfishness, it's not narcissism, it's self-preservation. You cannot save someone else. Even people who come to my office and they're not ready, I tell them, when you're ready, give me a call. I'm not, here we're working. If
we have to work together,
if we're not working, it's okay.
It's not going to work.
And I don't take it personal. It doesn't make me a bad therapist. No. I'm aware that you need to do the work. And it's hard, yes, sometimes it's on and off. But if you're not ready, it's also okay.
That is so true. Because I think during my marriage, I think I probably saw about 2 to 3 psychologists.
Yeah.
Because you would go, and then I would go, and then maybe after 3 sessions, this woman would tell me something I don't want to hear. I'm not ready to
You're just
hear.
not ready to hear.
I'm just not ready to hear. And then I'd be like, I'm not doing this. Find another psychologist, tell me something that I'm not ready to hear.
Yeah.
Until I came to a point of realizing myself that something, indeed, I'm lying to myself, because they were telling me the truth, but then I preferred to still stay in the lie. And until I realized that this lie is not serving me, then I was willing to listen. I was willing to do the work.
Yes.
So I fully understand what you mean.
Yeah. We need the capacity to sit with the hard stuff. And I always say to people, it takes courage to come see someone like me. It takes courage to work on those things in the subconscious. Because with human beings, we just want to be soldiers. We just want to survive. Why are you making me unpack boxes of my traumas? I just want to keep it moving.
And I remember you said that wound, eventually it becomes infested.
Yes. We as soldiers, we just put Band-Aids.
Bandage, yeah.
But underneath, it becomes infected. Then you come for therapy, I rip them off. Then I've got my disinfected.
Yeah.
I become clean. And the tears feel like the day the wound was
Happened,
inflicted.
yes.
But I always say, because I'm walking with you, because you are ready, because you have the capacity, it's not the same as, and because sometimes we don't want to open the wound because we feel like, my goodness, if I open, it will just be chaos. I will not be able to manage. And I say, you're in a different space.
Because sometimes you think that wound is just on this one layer.
Yeah, and then I have
it's
many clients who say, yo, I came here, I thought I was at rock bottom. You took me to the basement
yes.
of my rock bottom.
Oh,
Like you took me, and there's boxes full of dust.
oh my gosh.
And they come with, as I said, anxiety. And because I'm a clinical psychologist, we go to the root cause. And they can see you. And they can see the link. And some people are not ready. And I respect
to
that.
go there.
They're not, because it's a lot. It's a lot. They don't want to go there. And it's the humanness that we don't want to sit with that stuff. But the irony is, the mind is so powerful that it can carry even a physical body. But we don't take care of it. We prioritize how we look. We prioritize our physical health. We prioritize, But when we talk about the mind, the one thing we must prioritize, we don't. I feel like schools, we need to introduce this where we have a class of how to master the mind. Because then we try mastering it in retrospect, not preventatively. When there's troubles, and checking in should be okay.
Should be okay.
The stigma is a lot. I don't tell people sometimes, and I'm a secret to many people's lives. They come to me and quietly say, and I'm okay with it.
That, yes.
I always say, I'm not for the title. I'm not for whatever. As long as you come to me and you benefit and you thrive and you leave,
A better person.
a different person,
Yes.
thriving, healing, and free. I helped someone and they called and they said, my goodness, you freed me from the prison of my mind.
Wow.
I didn't know I was in prison in my mind for 30 years.
Oh.
And, with the psychology, it's not like you can, oh my goodness, this person said this about me. But for me, it's because this is my purpose. Now you can imagine Mr. Trapped in Love, Joe, I call him Joe.
Yes.
He tackled that thing.
Do you think Joe has changed, just by the way?
People like that hardly change, but I honestly do not know. I cannot say. But honestly, people who don't see anything wrong don't change. It's hard. It's sad, right? Maybe he did do the work. I don't know. But at that time, he saw nothing wrong
with him.
with what he was doing. And people like that, it's those, I can't help you at the moment.
Oh, wow, Dr. Tumi. I feel like I've had a therapy session, entire therapy session sitting here with you. And when you say that we take care of ourselves physically, we look good, we have our weaves, we go to gym, we do that, but we don't take care of the mind.
The very thing that carries, and I always say to people, the mind for me is like a spiritual realm. Things in the mind happen there before they manifest physically.
Yes.
The mind is that powerful. That's why even when someone has a panic attack, they literally feel like they're going to collapse because that scenario, that worst case scenario, has played out in their mind. It feels real, and then it manifests physically.
Yeah.
And stress is physical symptoms without the physical cause. We take them to the doctor says, but we can see they've fainted, but we don't know what's causing it. Then they say, what's wrong? What's stressing you? Go see Dr. Dumi. So the mind is that powerful, and the only thing we're born to control is the mind.
Yes.
Which is our spirit. That's the only thing. The other things, children, no. Partners, no. Work, no. Life, no. Government, no. we try. Even children at some point, this is my child. We can't control their choices. It's their journey. We gave birth to them, but it's their journey. But the only thing we're born to control is the mind. But it's the last thing we take care of.
Wow. Sure. So, Dr. Dumi, where do our viewers get your book? Because this is such an interesting book. Trapped in Love. Trapped as a psychiatrist. Trapping a psychologist. Wow. Where do people get your book?
So I'm selling the book myself. If they find me on my socials, also on WhatsApp at 082 858-7033. I'm selling it myself, and I do courier it if someone is not in Gauteng province. And yes, please do. Trapped in Love. It's a memoir, 65 pages, an easy read.
It is an easy
And
read,
it is
yes,
really an
yes.
easy read. And the aim was just to show people what emotional abuse is, its impact, to create awareness around it, but for the victim to also learn that they can heal and thrive and survive and, live their best life in spite of what happened to them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr.
It's an
Dumi.
absolute pleasure.
And wow, it's I'm mind blown yet again. I'm mind blown by everything that you've just said. But Dr. Dumi, now how do people get a hold of you?
So I'm on social media at the handle is at Dr. Dumi _DSM. And I'm also on, my website is www.rebaonewellness.com. That's REBAONEWELLNESS.com. And my WhatsApp number for my practice is 2782-858-7033. That's 082-858-7033.
And Dr. Dumi, do you do virtual consultations? Because I
Yes,
know with some of the TikToks I've done,
Yeah.
people always ask me,
Yes.
I've spoken about exit plans and all of that. And since you're a life coach as well,
Yes.
so those are the things that you assist with.
Definitely.
For people struggle to say, I don't know how to get out of this. I don't know how to prepare myself
Definitely.
when I have to get out of this. You are the person to also assist with such things, right?
Definitely.
So in that way, people from Kenya have asked me, which psychologist
Yes.
are you able to do virtual consultations as well?
Definitely. I do
Okay.
use different platforms for virtual consultations. If they can just send me a WhatsApp or an email on my website, they can find, yes, my email addresses as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, wow, wonderful, Dr. Dumi. Thank you so much
you
for
for
coming
having
through.
me.
And thank you so much, everybody, for listening in, watching. And I hope that you will contact Dr. Dumi. Like I said, once every 3 years, I have to check in. And not because there is something wrong with me. I'm being, what's the word? Preventative? What is it?
Yes, preventative.
Preventative, yes. I'm being preventative so that I don't get to a point where life just overwhelms me. And this is not even just, we don't see Dr. Dumi because you're in a bad relationship. You see Dr. Dumi because maybe career-wise you're struggling. You see Dr. Dumi because maybe there's a childhood trauma that you need to deal with, or just you are just trying so hard to figure out this entire life thing that you're going through. And she's the girl to go to, and she will definitely help you out with whatever issues that you're having. But like she said, it has to start with you. The hard work starts with you. It is in you accepting that you are at this point in your life and where it is that you want to get, and she will walk that path with you.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
So please do contact Dr. Dumi, and please subscribe to this YouTube channel, as we're going to be having more conversations, as the show is called Life Unfiltered. We want you to come to you and say, this is the issue, and give you the tools to handle those issues that you're going through, educate you, give you knowledge. We also want to learn from you. Please comment on the conversation that we've had just now, and let's see what you have to say. Thank you so much for joining us.
Live Unfiltered with Pindley.